So second live stream of the day. You guys have been asking for it for about a month or so to do a MMA UFC featured live stream. So as you read the thumbnail, we're gonna start there. I do want everybody to know because we're at the eve of some fights. Boxing is always on the table. This is a boxing channel, but our Discord has a lot of Johnny Says Boxing Insider VIPs in there. Members who join on YouTube. We have our separate channel and separate thread in the Discord for MMA. And it's kind of, it's my wheelhouse just as boxing is. So I wanted to do, this will be our first live stream to where we market the UFC actually on the channel. But like always, you guys could shoot questions away. I got action coming up in a few hours. Goat, what's up, buddy? He's in the house. Manny, let's do it. What's up, Arto Ara? Guys, access to the Discord. Get a star. Join the YouTube growing community. That link is there. As you check in and let me know where you guys are tapping in from. Also, like the video. So say what's up to me. We'll get the chat going. Like the video. It helps me in more ways than one. Somebody on the earlier live stream today posed a very important question and said, Johnny, what UFC fights are you avoiding? On that premise, I want to let you guys know, just because you open up your betting app and you see all these boxing fights added, all these MMA fights added. Right now, you could bet on UFC, you could bet on the PFL. There's a fight card in China that goes down in 3 hours. Sometimes the best bets are the ones you don't make. So that being said, moving forward, I think it's an important question to ask from you guys to ask me, what fights are you avoiding? Now, to answer Goat's question before I get to the fights that I'm avoiding on the UFC card, I mean, I could break every fight down for you and give you a winner. My prediction, that doesn't mean I am betting on them. So when you ask me which fights am I avoiding, those will be the fights that I'm not taking action on. But I do have a perspective on them. So if you have any questions on your own UFC picks, ask away. So firstly, to answer Goat's question, it's a fight that's going down in about 4 hours in China. And it's a fighter that I've covered on the channel before named Can Xu, C-A-N-X-U. He's fighting a guy, Jawad Belmehdi, and Can Xu is $1.43. I'm sprinkling a little bit on that, and I'm taking him, just featuring that fight on a single leg. I don't know if you guys are getting action on it. So Manny R, that's not GAR. That's Gary Antonio Russell. So GAR is Gary Antoine Russell, the world champion at 140. Then you have Gary Russell Jr., the older brother, world-class hand speed, just fought 2 weeks ago. This is Gary Antonio. He's still a Russell brother. I think it is easy money. He fought about, he hasn't been that active. He's not the best of the brothers, but he should win. They're setting him up for a victory. If you guys know anything about the matchmaking, this is kind of a feeder fight. He's definitely 1,000,000% supposed to win this fight. Some of the big hitters in my text message group have Antonio Russell on one of their money line parlays in which it's only paying, I think, $1.10, but they've used that fight to juice up a 3 or 4 leg parlay at about 50% return. So it's a popular pick. He should get the dub. History Vault, what's up? He'll get the knockout. Crispy Chris, thoughts on Battle versus Nurs Bolton? So let's start there. In spirit of what the title of this live stream is, UFC, let's cover that first question because this is a fight I've been getting asked about a lot. Ruzabayev versus Brian Battle. I mean, I've watched Brian Battle since the Ultimate Fighter House. We've watched Brian Battle literally mature in front of us. We watched the guy go from Pooh Bear to the Butcher, and the dude is a savage. He isn't, we've seen him lose in the UFC. We've seen him lose in the Octagon, but he's been on a nice streak, and he fights viciously. He's a dog in there. The performance he had in Paris was one of my favorites. I'm not about to come to Paris, France, and lose to a Frenchman. Come on now. Come on, dude. The dude's a beast. Now, Ruzabayev is a goddamn animal. Am I betting on that fight? I am not betting on Brian Battle versus Ruzabayev. I'm not betting my money, but if I were to put money on it, I would take Ruzabayev. I really think so. I think Ruzabayev is gonna show his class. I just think he's a little bit better in certain areas of the fight. But Brian Battle is a very fan-friendly fighter. Like I said, I'm a fan of him. Yeah, Ruzabayev, 6'5", big dude. Let's see his. He lost a decision to Buckley. He's coming off a couple decisions. I mean, he's an underdog, but he's definitely a live underdog. He's gonna be there to get hit. It's a fun fight. Battle's gonna want to get him bloody. Battle's gonna want him drag him to deep waters. I mean, Ruzabayev has over 40 pro fights, 6'5". Battle's gonna have his hands full. That's all I'm gonna say. Thoughts on Battle? We covered it. Goat, yeah, familiar with Kansas. Didn't realize he was fighting. Yeah, he's fighting in a few hours. Thanks for clearing that up. Don Julio, Johnny, what's your thoughts on Starling Castillo? Starling Castillo, Don Julio, another fight, boxing match that's fighting. You could get him at, I think, 154. I'm not betting on him. I'm staying away from the fight. Over the last few weeks, I've gone from a big-eyed money line bettor, taking favorites and underdogs. I see him on the ticket. I see him fighting a decent opponent. His handlers, he's the A side. How he handles his business, he should win. I'm not betting on that fight. I'm staying away from that fight, just to give you a heads up. He should win, though. He's the favorite for a reason. Dominic Valley, there's two Valley brothers. Dominic Valley allegedly got pulled, so Valley's not fighting. Arrow. Valley allegedly has been pulled from the card. Tenny Olahi, how do you feel about Sam Goodman versus Ball over 10.5? So Aladehi, I've broken down that fight. It's on our playlist, Fight Predictions. I have Ball on the money line. History Vault. This is what I'm talking about. Live, in-depth talk. Let's do it, History. Let's do it. Rudy Pedraza, welcome. Method of victory for Hrgovic. Okay, Rudy, you're putting me on the spot. Obviously, I have Hrgovic on the money line on one of my locks. I gave you guys my lock parlay, which is up in the Discord. Guys, I put about 5 parlays up in the Discord. There's 3 of them in the boxing chat, and there's 2 of them in the MMA chat. So I've already given you 5 parlays. I'm going to give you guys 2 more. So method of victory on Hrgovic. Yeah, see, I have a little sneaky method of victory parlay working. I have Hrgovic to win a decision, but that's on a separate ticket. I took Hrgovic to win a decision on a separate ticket. Method of victory. Do you think Pico? Crispy Chris, I don't think Pico's overrated. I think Pico is a dog, man. I think he, world-class wrestling. It took him a little longer than I thought it would take to get to the UFC. We know he signed a pro contract as a teen. I think in either his first or second pro fight at Bellator, he got upset. He's worked on his hands a lot. Pico, he's a favorite for a reason going into his fight this weekend. Give me 1 second. Okay, Laron Murphy. Laron Murphy is a UK fighter. We just recently see Laron Murphy. The narrative on his career pretty much is not necessarily been inactive, but he's really struggled to get a featured fight. He's really struggled to go viral. It's his fight style. He goes about his business a bit methodical. He's pretty solid everywhere. He's undefeated for a reason. I think he might have a draw on his record. I think Murphy's already now in his mid-30s. I think from an energy perspective, the willingness to stand and trade, the willingness to put yourself in vulnerable situations for the sake of, electrifying the crowd. I love Aaron Pico in this fight. It's another fight I'm not betting on, though. I'm not betting my money on that fight, but I like Aaron Pico to beat Murphy. Do you think Adele will knock out Hrgovic? No way, dude. Adeleye is really slow, really lethargic. You guys are sleeping on Hrgovic, man. Hrgovic was a stellar standout coming out the amateurs. So much hype on him. He's fought really good competition as a pro. I think he's only in his early 30s. Adeleye is going to be a level below. I put Hrgovic as a world-class heavyweight, and I put Adeleye fringe domestic heavyweight. I have a feeling Hrgovic is going to fumble. Yeah, I don't see it. Skeezy, my man with the late live stream. Skeezy in the house. Perth, what's up? History Vault trashes Adeleye. Yeah, Adeleye is not going to win. I also have Hrgovic. Yeah, so Rudy P. We got Hrgovic. So I got Hrgovic on a sneaky method of victory parlay by decision. I also have a couple little shockers. I'm going to share that in the Discord for the Discord boys, for the Blue Stars. Hrgovic by decision is decent bet. See, that's my reasoning with that is Hrgovic really doesn't fight with a lot of urgency. First round. Get after it, boys. Get after it. Easy over 1 round for the Pico fight. Yeah, Crispy Chris. The reason why I love that easy over 1 round for the Pico fight. Now, you know, Lerone Murphy is what you would call a visceral fighter. Really high fight IQ. He doesn't force anything. He pretty much takes what you give him, and it's always worked for him. You mix that style with Pico's aggression, Pico's going to want to mix it up. You know he's going to have that nervous energy first time in the octagon. I think, you know, you don't have to be an MMA nerd like myself to have heard of Aaron Pico. I think even UFC casuals maybe would have heard of Pico. You'd like to think so, considering his, you know, the hype he had coming out of really pretty much high school. So you mix that, it's tough for me to see, you know, I mean, we've seen Pico. I like the over 1 round. I like it. I like over 1 round. Am I betting on Haruta? Let me double check. This will be a shot. I think I am. Yeah, I am. I actually have a sneaky on Bet365 because Haruta, she's ranked #1 in the world for a reason. She's fighting a tough fighter in Cardenas Gomez. I like Haruta. She's aggressive. And you can either take her by decision at $3 or take her by stoppage at $5. It's always risky to take the girls by stoppage. The only girl fighter I bet on by method of victory is Gabby Fundora. Every time Gabby fights, I go heavy on her to win by stoppage. And she's come, you know, what if she came through for me last fight against Maria Badillo? And so I have Haruta on a parlay. She should get the job done for sure. First round, easy Pico. Haruta's a nice booster. Yeah, $1.10, I agree. Dwayne Styles just came back from the gym, had a boxing workout today. Shadow boxing, land my punches with a band on my foot connect. Nice, mate. Move that head. Squats. Build those quads. Develop that up and down movement. Slip left, slip right. When you're slipping, you ask me about the head movement. It's all here. The head is an outcome of the hips. 40 people and only 10 likes. Yeah, you guys are... you guys are scandalous with the likes, boy. You guys are stingy with the likes, ain't you? Carlos Vargas, what's up, buddy? C. Vargas in the house. Best channel on boxing. Appreciate you. We do what we can. We're growing. I keep it consistent. Let's do it. Too Crispy Chris. Look out for punch props. Yeah. Did you guys see the? Did you guys see the stat the Ring Magazine just shared regarding Nick Ball? Nick Ball averages, I think he averages 17.5 landed punches per round, well above the average at 126 pounds. He lands over 17 punches a round. So if you guys are into punch stats, I know that Crispy Chris is talking about Ford. It's something to look at with Nick Ball as well, considering that style. Ford doesn't, you know, Ford has been trying to turn up the volume a bit on his style. So Crispy Chris, are you looking at you're looking at an under for Ford, right? Or you think he's going to come out super aggressive and put it on Nova? Because guys, Nova's going to be dangerous. Nova's only 31. I know people are, I have Ford on the money line. It seems like Abraham Nova's 50 years old. He's only 31. He's also 5'9". He has a lot of knockouts. It just everybody, hopefully we didn't get honey-dicked. All the boys are in a private message group, our Discord. We got some professional bettors. Everybody's sharing these messages from some of the big boys on ProBox, talking about how Abraham Ford didn't have a training camp, how Abraham Nova didn't have a camp, how Nova is just, not motivated. And if that's the case, which everybody thinks it is, Ford should handle him pretty decently. But when Abraham Nova is at his best, pretty much you'd have to go back before the Robesi Ramirez fight. He is 3-3-1 in his last 7, but he is only 31 though. So it's something to keep in mind. Even though I have Ford on the money line, something to keep in mind. And he's a big boy. 5'9" in that division. He's a big dude. It's going to be interesting to see how he fills out too. I forgot about Zucan. Nova is durable. Ituama knockout. Yep. Diogo, it just seems like the question is, when does Moses get the stoppage? He's coming to win. So Carlos, you think Nova's coming to win? If Nova's coming to win, we're going to have ourselves a dog fight. Thanks for the head movement pointer, Johnny. Appreciate it, Dwayne. No worries, brother. I'm looking at over for 4 beating Nova for most significant strikes landed. Okay. What are those odds? Nova won't beat 4, no shot. Yeah. Decent odds for Nova throwing the most punches not landed. I can see that. Goat says even at his best, I think 4. Okay. Fair point. And the thing we have to mention, too, is the fact that Raymond Ford is still evolving, guys. At 26 years old, like, for instance, this is a great example. There's certain fighters, no matter how old or how young they are, their style is what you get. We talk about this all the time. Coach Bermudez with the $2 tip. My man, those super chats make my day. With the little blue highlight, let's go. I used to train Nova, big kid, big puncher. Nice, man. See, Coach Bermudez, the more you're on my channel, I've never really talked trash about Nova. I actually like Nova as a fighter. I don't know him personally. I never coached him, but I like how he operates, mate. I like his length. When he's cooking, he's cooking. He's lost some decisions in the past. That Robesi Ramirez, it's tough being a world-class boxer when you're that guy, and then you run into another guy who's also that guy. Psychologically, it's tough. It's freaking the most brutal sport in the world, mate. So, yeah, that had to be, coaching a guy like Nova, man, that had to be a joy. You know what I mean? He's top of the mountain for a while. He's only 31, dude. He's not, I don't think he's washed. People are saying he's washed. I don't see it. I think he's going to pose some interesting threats. My point about Ford, though, with his style, what I was talking about is certain guys, like when you look at a Nick Ball style, Nick Ball style is Nick Ball style. It's so sort of congruent with his skill set. You're not going to see Nick Ball add too much to what he already brings to the table at 28. Raymond Ford, on the other hand, 3 fights ago when you watch him fight, everything with him sitting on shots to punching a little bit more with his opponents, he's adding levels to his game. Coach Bermudez thanks again for the super chat. Never been the same after. Coach, when did he tear his Achilles? Isn't it strange, guys, in boxing that the mainstream media, the analysts, they never talk about fighters' injuries being relevant in their performances. It's super relevant. It's everything. We talk about it in basketball. We talk about it in football. We talk about it in baseball. We have a thing called Tommy John surgery, right? It's a surgery you have on the elbow. It used to be a career ender. Now you can come back from it. But if you have that surgery, the entire rhetoric for the rest of your career is so-and-so came back from Tommy John surgery. So think about the influx in the NBA right now with non-contact. I mean, it's a non-contact sport, but the Achilles tears. We're seeing it all the time, especially at the high level. And, the narrative and the rhetoric for, these guys' careers moving forward, we just saw it with Indiana. We just saw it with Boston, star players, Halliburton. It's going to be, they're coming back from an Achilles. Will he ever be the same? For some reason, think about Nick Chubb and the knee injury in the NFL. When Chubb blew his knee out in college and then he did it again in Cleveland and, went from one of the best backs in the league to, he's an injured guy. In boxing, we act like it's not a thing. And it's horrible to hear, like, when the analysts were calling the Devin Haney-Jose Ramirez fight. This is why I have beef with the old-timer that I used to like, the old white dude. Legend. His name's slipping my mind. It was almost like The Ring in Turkey. Yeah, Lampley. He did terrible, dude. I said this before. I wish Lampley would have stayed retired. His performance in Times Square was awful. You could tell he was being served a narrative that he had to get off. And rather than talking about, what Devin had overcome, we could talk about facts. Devin overcame a fighter who tested positive for PEDs. He overcame 3, I think, knockdowns, didn't get knocked out, made it to the final bell, and lost the decision, believe it or not. Rather than talking about that, the whole narrative was he ran the entire time. He's running. And, to put a point on Coach Bermuda talking about Abraham Nova has never been the same since his Achilles tear, you never hear anybody talking about it. It's wild because it does matter, especially in Achilles, dude. Think about, how important staying on your toes is in every high-level sport. It definitely matters. Where's Henry Williams? I got the over to Ford's credit. He even almost got stoppage last opponent. Tito in the house. They talk about Floyd's hands. They do it. Yeah, they do it to certain fighters, right? Shakira tripping 4 will win by decision. Shakira after the Avery Sparrow fight. Okay, see, I didn't know that. After. He tore it in camp. Some of these guys' perspectives these days are odd. Yes, Sal's blog talk. I think they're obviously serving narratives. Henry Williams, when is the Kurt Scooby versus Dakota Linger rematch? Is that November? I didn't know. Is that signed? Chael versus Michael is the fight I'm staying away from. Yeah, Crispy Chris Mearshot versus, how do you pronounce his last name? Oleszewski. We know Oleszewski's style. He's fought at light heavy before all the way down to middleweight. We know he's going to run up on you. He's going to sprint to you. We've seen him look great before. We've seen him get stopped before. Right? The thing you're going to know about Oleszewski is that he's going to be in your face the entire time. The thing you know about old-ass 92-year-old Gerald Mearshart, super slow, super lethargic. If you had to pick an adjective for the opposite of fast twitch, he'd be even worse than slow twitch. But don't sleep on GM3. GM3 has the most finishes in middleweight history. That's insane. So with GM3, if I were him, what I could see actually happening is using Oleszewski's aggression against him, standing as long as he wants to, pulling guard, similar, think about how Paul Craig goes about his business, the Big Scott, and trying to catch him something nasty on the ground. Because once you go to the ground with Gerald Mearshart, you're in his world. Crickets when Raleigh dismantled Ryan. Yes, I know. Great point. And I always speak highly of Raleigh. It was horrible. Glad Max is back. Is Max back? Is Max back? Yeah, Arto Ara. We did talk about the two. And the biggest irony. There's two kind of ironies in the two Japanese fighters who passed away. Not only were they on the same card, but they also fought each other a few fights ago, which was wild. Coach Bermudez, Kurt Linger, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't hear anything about Scobie getting signed, having that fight official. Max is calling Canelo Crawford. Wow. Damn, I didn't know that. They will make the fights 10 rounds there. Damn, Johnny, Coach Bermudez got a world champ in the making, right? Oh, I didn't know Coach Bermudez was Polanco's coach. That's awesome. Polanco's my guy. We always feature Polanco on the channel. Henry Williams in the house. Yeah, we always, I've been featuring Rohan for at least the last year and a half, 2 years. Nobody really says his name. He, smooth operator in there. He's one of those guys who's so talented with a lot of people who support him. You know how fickle the boxing world is, the boxing community. If you see a fighter who has hype and, they'll smooth operator, high fight IQ, doesn't rush his work, takes what he could get. All of those things are the makings of becoming a world champion. And some casuals will see things such as that, and they spin these fake narratives. The unfortunate thing about that is some of these huge YouTube content creators with mine's a small channel. Some guys with like hundreds of thousands of subs who people actually listen to, casuals, will run with these narratives. It's insane. You'll never get that here. Did he move up to 47? No. Polanco? I thought Polanco's been a welterweight. Protez versus Neal is a banger. Another fight, Crispy Chris. I'm not betting. It is a banger. I was telling my boy about Jeff Neal. People sleep on Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal is a guy out of Texas, in my opinion, who's still in his prime. We've never seen the best of him. He's had out of the octagon issues. We know about his legal issues. I still think we haven't seen him at his best. his boxing in the pocket, his sort of composure in a firefight, which is exactly how Prates is going to fight him. Prates, I think, he's going to have the speed advantage. He's a favorite for a reason. I think Prates comes from, isn't he a fighting nerd guy? Comes from that Caio Barraio camp, so they have a lot of hype around him. But I might sprinkle. I'm a big some of my favorite fighters are Texas boys. I'm friends with Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez fights out of Texas. Cameron Smotherman fights out of Texas. Joshua Van, I think, trains and lives and fights out of Texas. People sleep on the Texas MMA scene. I'm friends with James Vick, the Texecutioner. I was at the James Vick fight, I think, in 2014 when he came down here to Sydney, and Vick fought. He still fights in the UFC. The white kid from Melbourne, Jake. God damn it. Not Jake Matthews. I always want to say Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews. And Matthews was, I think, a 20-year-old and was a 3-1 favorite. And James Vick subbed him, put him, jumped on a guillotine and subbed him, got submission of the night. People sleep on James Vick because how he ended his career. I think Vick started 15-0, 16-0, the Texecutioner. People sleep on the Texas MMA scene. Aren't the two brothers, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Joe Kwani, don't they fight out of Texas as well? But yeah, there's some good coaches in Texas, great boxing in Texas. Obviously, Bam. The list goes on and on just off the top of my head. Ramon Cardenas, he put his name on the map. I want to see Ramon Cardenas get a big fight after his showing against Inoue. So yeah. Yo, coach, TJ put in work for his ball, even got kicked, no point. TJ is a dog. TJ died. So TJ used to train here. Bondi Boxing. Yeah, so TJ was coached by Tony Del Vecchio for a while down here in Sydney. Obviously he's an Irish boy. TJ, former world champion. TJ mixed it up decently, I thought, with Inoue. He had some exchanges, and TJ fought Goodman well. TJ, 37, long in the tooth now, but that kid is all heart, man. He's a nice little boxer, and before it's all said and done, world champion. You know what I mean? He definitely put his name on the map. What great fighter. Great work ethic. I remember watching him train. I got videos going down to Bondi with the camera when I was managing Lynn Sandstrom, and it was before the there was the IBO champ at 150, Sam Edgington. When Sam Edgington came down here in 2021, Sam was doing his last half of the camp at Bondi Boxing, and Sam was fighting, I think, not Darryl Foley. Sam was fighting, God, he fights out of Newcastle. I'm pissed I can't remember his name. But Sam came down here and lost. But your boy was in the gym training. TJ Donnie's an animal in the gym. What am I missing? Okay, let me catch up, boys. Veteran that fights with Bo Mack. Steven Nelson? Call me crazy, but I got MJ beaten anyway. I don't. I'm an MJ fan. He's not beaten anyway. Which Valley fight did you say? Dominic's not fighting. Marcus is still fighting. Henry, who you got, Johnny, the William Foster fight? Now, Foster is an underdog going into this fight, but we know, like Henry Williams is saying, he comes from a fighting family. I'm not betting on that fight, Henry. Not because I'm not, I'm going through a phase right now, creating new boundaries for my own habits in terms of where I put money at. And I've been guilty sometimes of getting big-eyed, and I think it's probably a chat we should all have because there are a lot of gamblers on the channel who will bet on every single fight. I'm just not betting on the fight. I like Foster as the underdog in that fight, though. Not Bo Mack. He trains with Breadman. I missed something. Good night, Dwayne Styles. Gotta go. Post-game concert. TJ trained with me every time he had a fight schedule. No way. Coach Bermudez, are you in Australia? All in on Kanzu. So I don't know if the stream's going down, but I see the views went from 50 to 20 real quick. I'll leave this on for a little bit longer. Coach Bermudez, where's your gym? Every time he had a fight. So I'm going to go over real quick my UFC. I do have a UFC lock that I shared in our Discord. And I know some of you guys have access to the Discord, but I just want to make sure everybody's using it. So everybody with the blue star who sign up on YouTube, Johnny says Boxing Insiders, That membership gives you access to our Discord, and in there, you're going to see all my bets. Yeah, the stream is crashing. I'll come back on. Hooper. Yeah, Hooper. It's talking about Chase Hooper. He's fighting Alexander Hernandez. Dennis Hogan, Dara. Thank you, Dara. I was waiting for somebody to call it. Okay, we're still live. I just haven't seen it dip this low in a long time, but it's all good. It is Friday. Yeah, Hooper should handle Alexander Hernandez. I mean, just watching Hooper evolve into, being able to be a little bit decent with the hands now and, put all the muscle on. He's at 155. Hernandez has always been an in-betweener, just genetically. He's gone from, multiple divisions, had mixed results, came in the UFC on fire with that upset win over Benny Dariush. Then he got rushed into the fight with Cowboy Cerrone. And then from there, he's kind of been a win one, lose one sort of guy. This is a tough fight. I think Hooper stops him. And Alexander Hernandez is all gas, no brakes too. And Hooper will fight you that way. That's why Chase Hooper is fun to watch, because we know what he wants to do, but he will fight you. He will stand and bang with you. So, and Hernandez could crack a little bit. So it's going to be interesting. The thing that Hooper has is certain grappling heavy jiu-jitsu guys, I think, just have it in them to get hurt and just go straight into airplane mode and reach and grab a leg and then survive. You could watch Chase Hooper when he was 18 on the regional scene in Alaska do this. He was fighting on Fight Pass. This is how big of a nerd I am. I remember watching Chase Hooper fight on Fight Pass during an Alaskan MMA regional promotion. I forget what it was called. And he's fighting in the main event. He's 18. He's fighting like a 28-year-old. He's standing and trading, gets caught, almost is like out on his feet. And then, you go, like I said, your grappling heavy jiu-jitsu guys, they go straight into sort of airplane mode, for the lack of better terms. They reach for a leg, and then they survive on the ground, and before you know it, you're in their world, and then you get submitted. Dennis Hogan. All right, good. Johnny FX, I'll get you in the Discord, big dog. Henry Williams, it's in the chat. Johnny Bermudez, easy, most underrated trainer out there. Watch out. Rohan Polanco, I always give him love. Coach Bermudez is my guy. I never put two and two together. In Boston when he started training, but now in Springfield where he trained for the fight. Nice, man. Interesting. No wonder, yeah, because he left Sydney, I think, maybe during the pandemic. He can't, what he does is when TJ fought Sam in Sydney on the undercard of Tim versus Harrison, that's when I was working with Del Vecchio at Bondi Boxing. Probably because he came back to Sydney, he was doing the last bit. They do all their media days at Bondi Boxing, but I was getting to watch him drill and hit the pads. That dude is... Dude, people don't... I think people who are unaware, who've never stepped into a boxing gym, maybe never thrown a punch, never been around a world champion before, never been around just a boxer before, let alone... You don't have to be a world champion. I don't think they'll ever truly understand or grasp the amount of effort, discipline, focus it takes for these guys to get to a certain level. Also, being around a guy like TJ, who, was super just switched on. That sort of focus in everything that I was watching him do, it's sort of infectious, because I'm a coach and, I train, and I'm 43 now. You guys know how old I am. I live my life like a samurai. I don't abuse my body. I train every day. And so I look out for these sort of daily habits sort of thing. And, you really want an example on how to be switched on or focused with everything, go to a boxing gym. You don't have to be around a world champion. Most guys who devote their sort of practice and, live sort of a samurai lifestyle, you'll get to see it. Hernandez, no way. Not a pushover. I agree. Are you confident about Carini? I am. I'm a huge fan of Carini Silva. I'm definitely confident in that fight. She's one of my locks in MMA. Grinding in Melbourne right now. Big weekend. Big Steve. Melbourne, what's up? Melbourne in the house. Nice little MMA scene in Melbourne. I once had on my podcast in Sydney, this is before the pandemic, I brought down Phil Daru. Phil Daru at the time was a strength and conditioning coach at American Top Team in Florida. And he did this tour, and he started out in Melbourne, and when he came to Sydney to my gym, he brought the Melbourne boys. I forget what gym, Open MMA, But I met all these boys from this MMA gym. They were super, super good people. Coach Bermudez, my best guys. Yenli Yo-Yo Hernandez. Love watching him. Dude, Yenli's high guard. Dude, when Yenli starts turning on you and he uses, he frames here, he's using his frame to throw bombs. Once you get on your back foot and your back's against the ropes, dude, it's a long night for you, boy. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. He kind of dispels that modern era Cuban myth as well. People could get kind of tricked into thinking watching William Skull and, they try to create this rhetoric and the Cuban boxing style use movement. Not Yenli Hernandez. He can move, though. Great mover. He can do it all. Yenli Hernandez is a fun guy to watch. I think Hooper can make it look easy. Yeah. But it's going to be a firefight in that first minute. Like, Chase Hooper, Alex Hernandez, that first minute, don't miss it. Yo-Yo is a beast, another potential. I think he is. I think Yenli is a potential world champ. I'm high on Hernandez. I've covered him on the channel before. He didn't train with me when he fought Sam. Yeah. That's why that's the timeline I was figuring out. Who you think has a better chance of winning their fight? Edson Barboza. Dude, go to my playlist. Go to interviews. I remember interviewing Edson Barboza in 2017. Who do I think has a better... Look, man, I'm a huge Edson Barboza fan, man. I've been a fan of Edson Barboza since he, came into the UFC. That spinning fucking heel kick against Terry Edom, classic. He has so many of those iconic moments. He's a family guy, great fighter, lives like a savage, lives like a samurai. Obviously, you see his physique every time he comes in to a fight. Being able to drop from 55 to 45 when he was in his 30s is not an easy thing to do. He still thinks he could be a world champion. He has a tough road ahead of him, though, man. So, to answer your question, who do I think has a better chance of winning? Edson, Barboza, or Pico? Give me 1 second. I want to see what I want to make sure, because I shared this parlay with you boys. See, Drakkar Klose, I think Barboza beats Drakkar Klose. I really do. If Barboza is even a fraction of his fast twitch, being able to, stop the double leg. Drakkar Klose is a wrestler, grappler who thinks he's a striker. He had a lot of hype on him about 3 years ago, and then either something happened during the weigh-ins. It was the kid from San Diego who trains with Jeremy Stevens, Lil Heathen. Lil Heathen, he was training in San Diego at the time with Dominic Cruz. At the weigh-in, Drakkar Klose, I think, was on maybe a 4-fight win streak. Super talented. And Jeremy Stevens during the weigh-in, and Drakkar cuts a lot of weight, pushes him. And Drakkar got bad whiplash and had to get hospitalized and couldn't fight for almost a year and a half, thought his career was over. And I got to be honest with you, he was never the same guy. Never the same guy. And so I like it, I'm not going to, my dad said, bet with your wallet, not with your heart. I'm not going to bet on that fight, but it's a good question. Edson is like 37, 38 now? I like Aaron Pico. If I were to take two, I like Pico and Barboza, to be honest with you. I was really high on Lerone Murphy, and his record is what it is for a reason. It's just when you watch Murphy's last few fights, his output, his lack of urgency, he said all these things a couple years ago, wanting to become a star. He's next in line. I think he's a Birmingham guy. I think he might be from where Leon Edwards is from. Doesn't talk a lot, doesn't market himself a lot. Has had a couple big fight opportunities. He's very astute in there. He's a thinker, meaning he's super technical, and he's one of these guys that, takes what his opponents give him. I would love to see Lerone Murphy go in there and be super ultra aggressive and put himself in danger once. Not in a way of being bloodthirsty as a fan, but seeing how he would handle adversity. I think Aaron Pico is going to give him all of those questions to answer. I don't think Pico's overrated. Watching him train, hearing stories about training partners that I know who've trained with him in the past, his work ethic, his mindset, Pico's going to be a lot to deal with. He's going to be a lot to deal with. Yeah, 16-0-1. Lerrone's 34 now. You know, hasn't lost since, has never lost. He had that draw against Tukagov in 2019. He stopped Ricardo Ramos, you know, was a nice win. Douglas Da Silva was a nice win. He stopped Amir Khani, but a lot of Malkwan Amir Khani, Mr. Finland. You remember Mr. Finland? He was actually fun. He was fun. He was a kind of nice little addition in the UFC. He stopped him with a knee. And then look, from 2021, let's see, he beat Ige by decision. He decisioned Emmett. He decisioned Barbosa. He decisioned Josh Kulabau. The thing about Lerone Murphy is what I'm saying is he's a very smart fighter. He doesn't put himself in harm's way. He's 34 years old. It's now or never. Aaron Pico is going to put him in this position to answer a lot of these questions that I have in him. I think Pico's 29 now, right? He's 20. Pico's 28. Been around forever. Trains at Jackson Wink. You know, he hasn't lost. His last loss was 2022. That's when his shoulder popped out of place. So I don't count that as a loss. Before that, he lost to Adam Borix. That was 2019. That was when he was 22 years old. Adam Borix, you know, Adam Borix is I know Borix trains, he might still train at Sanford MMA. Used to be the Black Zillions. My buddy is the head sports scientist there, Dr. Corey Peacock. It's the same gym that Michael Johnson trains at. It's the same gym that Kamaru Usman trains at. Aung Song, RDR trains there. That's a hell of a gym. So when Adam Borix, he went into that fight a huge underdog, but a lot of people weren't shocked that he beats a young Aaron Pico. He caught him with a brutal flying knee. When you look at his, you know, the opponents, obviously the resume isn't that great. He hasn't been the most active, though. Actually, let's see. Since his last PFL fight, Corrales was a great win in 2024. He did fight 2 times in 2024. No, he fought once in 2024, twice in 2023, which is kind of, you know, the standard for MMA fighters as of late. It's a long time from Royce Gracie fighting 5 times in one night. The good old days. UFC, he won UFC 1, he won UFC 2, and he won UFC 4. In UFC 3, he had to pull out due to exhaustion. That's you win and you stay, boy. No rules. The heyday of MMA. November, I think, 11th, 1993. We had Art Jimerson. We had my guy, boxer. We had boxing. UFC 1, Art Jimerson wearing one glove, leaving the lead hand bare, getting belt to ass. Who do you think has a better chance? What do you know about Gary Antonio? Yeah, so Gary Antonio Russell hasn't been the most active once again. You know, when you think about the Russell brothers, you obviously have to start with Gary Russell Jr., in my opinion. Dude, fastest hands in boxing, man. Watching Gary Russell Jr., I just wish he was more active. You know, he just came out of retirement. He actually looked great, 37, 38 years old. And then GAR, Antoine Russell's one of my guys, man. You know, I can't speak highly enough about Gary Antoine Russell. You know, the performance against Playo, what happened, and then what he looked like against Rayo. You know, I want to see these guys more active. Antonio, we've seen him get beat before, hasn't been the most active. If you know anything though about the Russell family, how they pick fights, how, you know, they're all kind of known for being inactive. He's a big favorite for a reason on the money line. So if you want to add him, I know a couple of the big boys in the parlay in our Discord have Antonio on their parlay to win. He should get the job done. Lamar Mover is a boring fighter. Yeah, Choi B, exactly. And Aaron Pico isn't going to fight him that way. Volume puncher, Kanzu later. Yeah, Kanzu is later. I got money on Kanzu. Do you guys think MVP gets clipped? So here we go. Give me 1 second. I apologize. I'm still fighting a cold. Sorry about that. Still fighting a cold. So MVP is fighting Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier, if you know anything about him, you know, if you know him before the UFC, he fought in the Alaskan regional MMA scene as well. He was a heavyweight. He was actually a wrestler first, a grappling heavy guy, fell in love with his power. They call him the killer gorilla for a reason. He's known for being super durable, super tough. He's fought through broken arms before to a decision. Doesn't always win. But the one thing you're going to get from him is a very, very tough guy. We know that MMA and all combat sports is a young man's sport. I think Jared is 41, 42 now. Doesn't look it. And I know MVP is up there. MVP might be 37, 38. The difference is MVP has always relied on a speed, reflex, unorthodox style of offense, right? And we know damn well if you could get past his length, you're going to be inside his hips. You're going to take him down. I expect Cannonier to kind of appease him for a little bit on the feet, and I expect him to be able to cut through that offense on the feet and take him down and muscle him up. I like Cannonier in that fight. Moses Sparks White, 100% Big Steve. Johnny, you, Coach Bermudez, and Chilltown could kill DraftKings. I didn't know. Dude, let's do it, man. I'm just linking up. I know Chilltown and Coach Bermudez are in the Discord, and I'm just putting – it's tough to put names on faces when I'm the only one talking. But Chilltown is coming on my live stream next week. We're going to talk about the fights, and we got some other things brewing in the background. So – Coach Bermudez, man, stay near your phone, big dog. Excuse me. Ardo Ara, sprinkle bit on a draw for the Zoo fight. My book draw was 18, now it's 12. Well, Ardo Ara, that could also have to do with if there's not a lot of books offering the Can Zoo fight and a couple of the big homies, like I know, are putting thousands on the draw just to pull a rug from under you. This happens in boxing. It happens in horse racing, too. One of my clients owns horses. I told this story once on the channel before. And there's these, what do they call them? Syndicates. So there's these betting syndicates in horse racing. We'll say a group of 6 guys. We'll say all 6 guys got banned from our sports betting app. They then reach out to one of my clients. They transfer him, we'll say, $100,000. He then, takes the $100K, sprinkles it within 250,000 bets. The syndicate will then load up on a horse race on a horse that isn't going to win, but they bet really heavy on this horse. Let's say that my buddy has 50K of their own, of the syndicate's money to bet on the horse that's going to win. The other guys will take, we'll say, 25K and bet it on the horse that's going to lose to shift the odds, and then they place the money on the horse that's going to win, the 50K. So you got to think this happens in boxing as well. Cannonier is a plotter, too slow on the feet. Yeah, it's something to talk about. Tsunami Avshak over 4.5. Oh my God, it's all rigged. I'm just letting you know, Ardo Ara. I'm just letting you know, brother or sister, depending on, I can't see through the screen. Do you guys know anything about paid fights? PAID fights? So when I was managing a couple boxers a couple years ago, I didn't realize that. I remember the first time we had a meeting, one of my positions was to get sponsors, get investors, get brand deals on my fighters' shorts, get their training camp paid for, get the flights paid for, right? All that good stuff. And one of my strengths is my connections here in Sydney and internationally in the fight game. I've been writing books and interviewing fighters and coaches since 2014, so over 10 years. And I do all that stuff for this fight camp. And then we get a fight in the UK. We were fighting at the famed York, I think it was called York Hall in London. And I'm needing to raise this capital for this fight. And I asked the coach, the fighter's coach, and I go, why are we paying for the opponent? We paid for the opponent's flight. We paid for the opponent's hotel. We paid for the opponent's, I think, gear. We had to pay the ref. We had to pay for the bougie-ass regional belt that was on the line. And so what I realized during this moment in my life that these are paid fights. So our fighter was working on climbing the rankings in one of the sanctioning bodies, needing fights. So sometimes to position themselves for either a title eliminator or a #1 contender or a title shot. This was a girl fighter, by the way, where the numbers are really lower and some divisions only have 200 pro females. And so I remember thinking about it like, holy shit, dude, what about our fighter? Does she get a fight? And I raised the capital for her purse, which is insane. So I remember that first fight where I took nothing off the top. I did everything out of the love of the game. I realized, I was like, holy shit, there's so many things that go on behind the scenes that the average fan, I thought I was more than the average fan. I thought I knew, but I never dealt on the pro game before, let alone managing a fighter or at least being in charge of, marketing them. I never knew sort of what a paid fight was. And so our fighter went in there. Now, if she would have went in there and got knocked out, there was nothing that we could have done. But, you know, she fights a girl who wouldn't have taken the fight, wouldn't have flown there, wouldn't have got the hotel if we didn't pay for it. And then she gets there, we win the fight, added onto the box rec, and then she fights for a world title 2 fights later and got starched. You saw a video of Hamzat hoist DC like a kid. Yeah, I watched the Hamzat fight, Chimaev a lock. I don't think so. I don't think Chimaev's is a lock, actually. Yeah, you guys are smoking on some hay. You guys are smoking on hay. Do you guys remember the rap group from the 90s, Crucial Conflict? Smoking on hay, hay in the middle of the barn. Smoking on hay. Anyway, DDP beats Chimaev, mate. That's all I'm going to say. You guys are smoking. Dude, dude, DDP, they just did the face-off. You guys were acting like Chimaev is this big dude. They're face-to-face. Chimaev's, Dricus du Plessis walks around at 230. He's a beast. This dude, people said he was going to lose against Rob. They said he was going to lose against Adesanya. They said he was going to lose against, his entire career he was supposed to lose. Smoking on hay, hay in the middle of the barn. But yeah, I like du Plessis at plus money. I'm staying away from the Castillo Bunch fight. That's another one I'm staying away from. Yeah, dude, Hamzat Chimaev went life and death with a 155 Gilbert Burns. Granted, Gil Burns is a dog, but Gil's a 155er, mate. He took that fight on short notice, fought him at 170. Gil almost stopped him in the second, dropped him. You know, I thought there was a case for, you know, I think didn't Chimaev win a decision? I don't think he stopped Gil, did he? I think Dricus is gonna, what Dricus is gonna do is he's gonna withstand that early onslaught. Chimaev wastes a lot of energy. We know he's gonna shoot for the double. The fight's gonna start. They're probably not gonna touch gloves. Chimaev is gonna go right in, shoot for the double. DDP will have strong ass hips, sprawl, then they'll clinch up. It'll go up against the octagon. They'll be like in the clinch against the octagon. I could see Chimaev throwing a couple knees. DDP's back's against the fence. Then he switches position. Hopefully he breaks. Even on the feet in the first round, I give the advantage to Chimaev. But I think DDP's unorthodox style, I think his toughness, I think his cardio and his endurance is going to be too much. I like DDP to stop Chimaev, actually. Maybe the 4th round, 4th or 5th round. I'm not sold on Chimaev. Give me 1 second before we get to that. I'm not betting on the PFL this week, guys. The only time I bet on the PFL when my boy fights, Dalton Rossa. Dalton's actually fighting Fabian Edwards for the $185 million prize. Dalton's a buddy of mine. He's been on the channel before. Go to my playlist section here. Go to interviews, and you can check out it when I interviewed Dalton. I think Dalton was either 1-0 or 0-0. He was fighting for Bellator at the time. And now he's fighting for that $1 million belt, man. I couldn't be more happy for him, man. That dude puts everything, his whole life into training. No, I didn't, but I'm not surprised that dude, different breed. Yakubov. I mean, he's not that different. Yeah, Gilbert lost a 3-round decision to Hamzat. I mean, I had Gilbert winning the 2nd round, and the 3rd round was real close. The 1st round, Hamzat jumped out to a huge lead. Yeah, dude, I think DDP beats him. Ghazi Rabaniev, safe peck. Rabaniev. Yeah, I'm not touching the PFL. Do you guys have my locks? I gave you guys my UFC locks. They're in the Discord. It's a 3-leg lock, 3-leg parlay. and it pays $3.20. So 100 on it gets you your money back plus 220. Oh, Sasarkayev. Did you guys see Sasarkayev is fighting? Did you see Dalton Ross is going out? Yeah, I saw Dalton shared a photo with them. Dakota Dacheva. Dude, super couple. Let's go. Dakota Dacheva is very attractive if you like fitness girls. And she's a fucking killer striker. Great athlete, good fighter. They actually make a good couple. Did you guys see Sasarkayev is fighting this weekend? He fought on Tuesday. Sasarkayev fought on the Contender Series on Tuesday. He's fighting on the undercard this weekend. He's fighting Eric Nolan. They just added this fight. I just got a I just got a notification. Yeah, Sasarkayev is another Chechen fighter. I think he's Chechen. I don't want. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's from Chechnya. Yeah, there's some really good fights, guys. Dude, I can't wait for that Yuri Prohaska versus Khalil Roundtree fight, too. Talk about two of the most weird guys in the UFC. Two of the most odd dudes that I wouldn't leave my niece in the same room with. No offense to anybody. I wouldn't leave my life. But those two dudes are killer strikers. They're just both a bit bizarre. He's minus 900. Are you talking about Sasarkayev? Yeah. He's a huge favorite. You know what I think they're doing, guys, is they're building a narrative. You know how Dana is. He's a huge favorite. They're building a narrative. They're going to get to say he's going to be the first guy in UFC history to win 2 fights in 5 days. Because the contender fights actually go on their pro record. I'm pretty sure that those contender fights count on their record. If they don't count, they'll still spin that narrative. The UFC is all about storylines. Other than them actually, high-level problem solving, very similar to the WWE. And that's the brilliance in Dana White, the storylines. And this is why, once he just sold again for $7 billion, he really doesn't need superstars anymore. Ronda Rousey and Conor did all the work for him. And now it's just become so mainstream. He just sits back. He doesn't have to market guys anymore. He just has to sell storylines. Eric Nolan is a welterweight. Yeah. Diego Lopez versus John Silva, boys. That's a fun fight. I remember, I got to be honest, I've actually been quite impressed with how Diego Lopez, his pro career in the UFC, because I remember watching him get starched in the LFA. I remember him getting stopped in Brazil. I think he was fighting, and then when he fought on the Contender, and then I think he took didn't he take a late notice fight in the UFC to get signed, if I'm remembering correctly? And then he's gone on this huge winning streak. His defense is very leaky. And I think John Silva is like Vanderlei Silva reincarnated in terms of their style. Granted, Vanderlei fought at middleweight and light heavy the older he got. But the Axe Murderer, probably of that era, my favorite MMA fighters of all time, Vanderlei Silva's definitely up there, dude. He'd do this one. Skinhead, big tattoo. Came from that shoot the box gym in Brazil. Dude, there's stories of him in Shogun, of Vanderlei Silva, and it was either Vanderlei Silva and Shogun or Vanderlei Silva and Vitor Belfort going to war. They found the story's kind of famous. They found like a stray dog. A stray dog walked into the gym, into the shoot box academy in Curitiba, Brazil, Curitiba. And they fought for it. And allegedly, it was like one of the most iconic gym wars of all time. These guys were like in their 20s at the time. And I look at John Silva's style, dude. Mate, I guarantee if you were asked John Silva who his idols were growing up, he would say Vanderlei Silva because he fights like him. Fucking has fun in there. He's mean in there. Super unorthodox, but aggressive. I think Diego Lopez isn't that. I think he's going to have his hands full for sure. Damn, that card is not bad. You got Yuri Prohashka and Khalil Rountree. You got Marab versus Corey Sandhagen. And did they make Ankalaev and Pereira? I didn't even know they were fighting again. And Ankalaev and Alex Pereira, Poatan. They made the rematch. Insane. Yeah, there's some good UFC fights. Guys, we're an hour in. If you got action on China tonight, good luck. And then we got action tomorrow on Pro Box. And I'll be going live tomorrow morning. This is my second live of today. You guys are freaking amazing, man. We started our Discord about a month ago now. We're up to, I think, 150 Johnny Says Boxing VIPs in the Discord. The accessibility to guys who literally make a living betting on boxing is insane. So they're in there. You could pick their brains. You could tag them. Muscles is one of them. TJ from Chilltown's in there. Coach Bermudez is in there. We got world-class. Shout out to Mike Tyler. Follow Mike Tyler TV. His box rec, he's under the name Tyler Christopher. He's a boxer out of the UK. He's fighting in September. He's in there. And so, it's a wide array. Boxing nerds like myself, lifelong athletes, pro fighters, coaches, all in there. So to join up, just click the link. You like Pico to win. Does Kanzu lose? No. I like Pico to win, and I like Kanzu to win. Tapology says Kanzu loses. Hola, amigo. ¿Cómo está? ¿Cómo está, mijo? Bien. Muy cansado. Necesito ensueño. Or be bear.